Hi, it's Deborah Poneman, founder of Yes to Success, where we share with people around the world knowledge and tools to live true and lasting success. When a friend told me that World Kindness Day was yesterday, I reflected on something that I'd heard earlier in the week from a great teacher and healer from Australia named Master John Douglas. I find him to be one of the wisest and most powerful teachers on the planet today. And he was talking about kindness. And although I was in such a deep state of bliss just listening to him, I could hardly take notes, but I managed to write down a few things that he said. And the first thing I wrote down was, quote, being a giver is one of the most important things you can do to mitigate your karma. Now, that's quite a powerful statement from a man who sees beyond the ordinary. Being a giver is one of the most important things you can do to mitigate your karma. When he said that, I thought, wow, no matter how gnarly your karma is, you have a way to undo the knots, to free yourself. He then used the example of the tithe. And he said something like, I won't pretend that I'm quoting him exactly. Remember, I was like really in this floating above the world state. But he said, like when you tithe, people think, oh, I'm going to test this out and give 10% and see if my finances improve. And not only is that not the attitude you want to tithe with, but he said that we need to be patient. He said, quote, most people stop just before they get the rewards and they miss the magic karmic recalculation moment. They miss the magic karmic recalculation moment. Think about that. We know that as you sow, so shall you reap. We know that no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. We know that the giver receives more than the receiver. But did you ever think that you might give up on kindness too soon, just before the karmic recalculation moment? I was thinking of a story about kindness and giving that I haven't shared with you before. And I thought of a moment that happened last year with my son. As I said, I have a company called Yes to Success. And one of the things that I do with my company is that I have mentoring groups. And I had a mentoring group with a group of women, and it was a 6-month mentoring course. And we had retreats at the beginning, at the end. And the retreat at the end happened to be in Chicago, and we were having our last lunch at an iconic restaurant in Chicago. And I decided to invite my son because he lives in Chicago. And my son has a nonprofit, which is called Shot in the Dark Foundation. And it's a foundation that gets college scholarships for high school basketball players in Chicago. He's very, very successful. Over the 10 years that he's had his nonprofit, he's raised over $50 million in college scholarships for the kids in the inner city. So anyway, we're all sitting around and they were asking Daniel all kinds of questions about his business and his nonprofit. And one of the women, Sue is her name, said to him, so Daniel, what can we do for you? She was asking him for his ask. So I'm thinking, oh yes, he's going to ask for money for Shot in the Dark Foundation. But what he said was an example of true giving and true kindness. He said, well, I am so fortunate that what I love, which is basketball, and how I'm able to give back is through basketball, through my nonprofit. If you really want to do something for me, think about what you love and think about how you can go back to your hometown, to your community, and contribute to the people there by doing what you love, by enriching their lives, by doing what you love to do. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, wow, he just passed up an opportunity to get money for Shot in the Dark Foundation. And then he says, because, it all ends up in the same place anyway. Now that is true giving. And when we are truly giving selflessly, we never expect a thank you or anything in return. We don't give to be appreciated or acknowledged or recognized. We give because the giving is its own reward. So many people give because they think that they can buy a person's loyalty or their favor or their love. So many people tithe so that their names are on a plaque or they can tell everyone how generous they are. And everyone is like, oh, you're so amazing. And that's actually too bad. There's a powerful quote that probably we all know from the Old Testament that goes like this: do not practice your alms or your kindness before men to be seen of them, because otherwise you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. So when you do your alms, don't sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the street, so that they may have the honor of men. Truly, I say to you, then they have their reward in full. But when you give, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, and then you will have your reward from your Father who is in heaven. In other words, when you give, whether it's a tithe or an act of kindness, don't do it for recognition. Oh, Jane, she's so wonderful. She just told me she supports 10 orphans in Afghanistan. Or, oh, I saw your name. You're a big donor to that organization. I saw you at the $10,000 level. Then that is your reward. And you're foregoing the greater reward, the reward from spirit, from source, from the God of your understanding, from your Father who is in heaven. So I say, keep doing those acts of kindness selflessly, without a thought of return. Don't keep score, because if you give just for the pure joy of giving, then you will be filling that karmic storehouse where it is most important to keep full, because that is where source, spirit, the universe, the God of your understanding, that's where you will get the reward from them or him or her. You will have that karmic recalculation, that moment, that watershed moment when the good you do tips the scales of life, and everything after that just flows with the divine grace forevermore. And before we go and do some random acts of kindness in honor of World Kindness Day, I want to read you a true story. And it was written by a volunteer at a hospital about an act of kindness that I know will touch your heart. So here it goes. Many years ago, when I worked as a volunteer in a hospital, I got to know a lovely little girl named Liz, who was suffering from a rare life-threatening disease. Her only chance of recovery and survival appeared to be a blood transfusion from her 5-year-old brother, who had somehow survived the same disease and had developed the antibodies needed to combat the illness. The doctor explained the situation to her little brother and asked the little boy if he would be willing to give his blood to his sister. I saw him hesitate for only a moment before he took a deep breath and said, "Yes, I'll give her my blood if it will make her live." As the transfusion progressed, he lay in the bed next to his sister and smiled, as we all did, as we saw the color return to her cheeks. And then suddenly his little face grew pale and his smile faded. He looked up at the doctor and asked with a trembling voice, "Will I start to die right now or later?" Being so young, the little boy had misunderstood the doctor. He thought he was going to have to give his sister all of his blood in order for her to live. So have a happy day after World Kindness Day, going out and doing those acts of kindness. I send you my love.